these black kids, they stole one of these machines where they'd make an ice ball and they pour some syrup on it in the summertime. And they stole it, and the police were pretty close on their heels, and so they threw it underneath the back porch of this guy, young Jones, who worked for me, who was a pretty damn honest kid. See? He was about 22, 23 years old. And they said, well, didn't you know that he stole that thing? And the two of them, and the police picked this guy up, and they brought him over there and threw him in jail. And he had a trial, and the judge fined him $50. He was innocent. He didn't open up, he didn't say a thing. And he was paying off that $50. I said, why do you do that? He says, don't you know those two little young kids, he says, they each got automatics? And he says that they would plug me just that quick. And here's this poor damn kid. Is there something?
It's all broken. That's all right. You can eat it that way. You can eat it that way. It's all broken.
Make a chunk off that. That's better.
Yeah, that's all right. It tastes good.
I says, can't you do anything? He says, no. There's nothing I can do. He says, I got to pay that off because he says, if I don't, he's going to kill me.
My gosh.
And that goes on all the time. Oh, it was in between.
Well, you were how old when you worked in the logging camp?
Let's see. I was out of grammar school when I was 12 years old.
What was it?
I graduated from grammar school 9th grade when I was 12 years old. And then I skipped the 7th and 8th grade. I was one of those Sharpies.
I figured that, Dad. I figured that.
Let's see, I was about, where was I? At the end of the, it gets about far back. Now, we're talking a lot of years. When at the First World War, we were in 1917, isn't that right?
Yeah.
All right. Frost was drafted, and he was the operating engineer, chief operating engineer. And my father, and I just got thrown out of the Benson Polytechnic. I was, I think, in the second year there. Because they turned it into an army camp, and we could go to a high school, but they didn't have any of the things we were taking. But they had girls if you want to run around. Oh, God. Well, my father came home, and he says, Forrest, and he says, tomorrow you're chief. I ain't got anybody. Because as a kid, I had the run of the whole plant. Charlie Wilson was a good buddy of mine. Very few kids were. I was the only one that ever allowed in the sawmill. But my father was his chief engineer, and I knew Charlie Wilson real well. He was a real good buddy of mine. And you know something funny? Charlie Wilson had a hernia operation, and I was just a young boy. And Charlie Wilson and I were buddies. I used to walk around the plant with him, and we had a hell of a good time. He liked me and I liked him. I don't know why, but he did. He only had one arm. He got it caught in something and got it tore off, and he only had one arm. And he went in, had a hernia operation, and he died. He never come out of it. And I said to myself, I says, it won't be so bad to get killed here. Charlie's there, he's my buddy, and he look after me. Funny thought for a little boy.
Yeah.
And it really worked for me. It gave me all the courage I needed. I said, Charlie's there. I know he's there.
So then you became foreman almost immediately when Frost got
Yeah, I was the operating engineer. I charged of the entire boiler plant.
At 14?
Yeah.
Younger than that.
Younger than that, 1917, 1903. What is that? That's 14.
Yeah,
14
okay.
years old. Weighed 87 pounds. Didn't grow very fast. Meaner than hell. I could swear on Italian worse than the Dagos could. I could. Meaner than hell. Been raised in the damn sawmill. Learned to swear when I didn't have any idea what was going on. Boy, I was just a meaner than that skunk. And everybody hated me, I guess. I was the boss's little boy, and I was Charlie Wilson's buddy. He loved me. He and I got along swell together.
Yeah. Oh.
And he was one of the owners, see, of the plant, Clark and Wilson Lumber Company. This was Wilson of the Clark and Wilson Lumber Company. And his wife ran the, what do you call them, Sunday school class, and Bill Burley and I were in the Sunday school class. And when the preacher got up to, when the superintendent of the Sunday school got up to pray, and he would bless this and bless that, and old Bill Burley said, and bless all the saloons and all the cat houses where all the darn lousy women are and everything else in town. Because he's got to, because we always catch him in that damn saloon there when we're taking the bottles back that we picked up as kids, to the back of Nelson's saloon. The barkeeper would come in, we could sneak around and look in there and see who was there. There's old man Schaefer when he's at the bar where I smoked my first cigar. Skunk and liar. What a town I grew up in. Linton, Oregon. See, that's outside of Portland in the sawmill town. And their sawmill towns are rough. Well, anyhow, I was 14 years old. And boy, I couldn't reach the throttle of the steam turbines. This plant was run by electric motors. We had 300 electric motors. That was my job, to look after the electric motors and all the electrical equipment in the boiler plant. And I had firemen out there in the boiler plant. We had 7 big boilers in the plant. 7 and 8. Yeah, we had 8. 8 big high-pressure boilers in that damn thing. And it was my job to see that those idiots up there didn't blow the place up. And boy, they were idiots, some of them too. You wouldn't believe it. We had Japs in the sorting table. A crew of Japs that worked at that. I never forgot when they were going to hire the Japs. It was a good idea. But they wanted a big bathtub, so we had an old boiler, and my father had taken a acetylene torch and cut it off in the middle, and it was about 14 feet long, and it was about 8-9 feet in diameter, and he put a drain on it and set it in brick, and then made grates underneath it, and had a log fire with a stack on the end, and that thing must have been good 25-30 feet long, and they rolled over, put a piece of pipe and split it, and had a round edge at the top and welded that on so they could slide over that round edge and go into it. So it was pretty well rigged up, and we had the floor even with it, and set it in there, and you could use a low fire underneath it to keep it warm. And we always had that thing full of warm water. And they would jump in there, a whole bunch of them, and bathe all at once. That was the darndest thing you ever saw. And then they had bunks all along on each side. And each guy had his own bunk there. We had must have had about 25 of them anyway there. And they were pretty good. They kept to themselves. And we used to use them on Saturday because everybody was drunk, and we needed some men to clean the dust in the sawmill off the top of those timbers, because if that dust would settle there, and if that ever caught on fire, we'd have a hell of a time. So we just have to clean that place every Sunday. And it was an awful job to get guys to come out there because everybody was drunk. It was Sunday morning. You didn't expect anybody to be sober. But the Japanese were sober, so we finally got on a hitch there and got all the Japs over there on Sunday, and then we didn't have to worry about it because my father only talked them to the boss Jap, and he whack down the line to those guys, and he'd see that the right number got there and that they got there on time. So I learned a lot of things working with my dad, and supervision and how to run an darn place. Boy, but I was awful. Oh man, I'd been raised in this damn atmosphere, and it was terrible. But it was hard for me too, because I don't know what you know about a power plant, but those howling turbines, they're terrible. This is a high pressure boilers and high pressure steam turbine and generators. And these great big things, I couldn't reach the darn throttle. I had a step ladder to get up there to open up to start that thing, and I'd watch the speed indicator and shoot that steam into that baby to get her rolling and get her on the line. And I couldn't close the big breakers on the switchboard, so I had to run and hit them with my shoulders. And these, if you're feeling these bones here, they're bent yet from closing the breakers on those switchboard. It was a hell of a job for me, but I knew how to run it. But oh brother, when I think of it, that was terrible. But
you got the flu after that time.
Yeah, then I got the flu. Well, one of these guys that was, we were putting up a counter shaft. They got another guy. These fellas started to come back, and my father was able to hire a guy, break him in. We could break him in as on the operating end of the steam turbines. And so I didn't have to work in the turbine room because I hated that damn place and the power plant and all the damn switchboard. And we were putting in a counter shaft for a big lathe they just bought. It was a 54-inch two-spindle lathe, big one. And he worked with me on that, and we put that damn thing up. He was my helper, and he was about 6'4", 6'6", and he was about 250 pounds, a great big tough Swede. And he got the flu, and they sent him to Portland to the auditorium because the hospitals were full. And 3 days later, he was dead. Oh, Nelson was dead. And I went home with the flu, and all us kids had it. And we were all in bed. And we were sicker than hell. And Mabel was hemorrhaging, and she would have died in a little while, and my mother was crazy. And she worked on the phone all the time, and she finally, they sent us a horse doctor, one of these, what do you call them? Veterinary. From Independence, Oregon. He came in, and he came in the door, and my mother brought him in, and here was Mabel. There was blood all over her place. He was just about gone. It was terrible. No matter what they did, ice and everything she could get from everybody, it wouldn't stop it. And he got out of his damn satchel, and he loaded an hypodermic needle, and he gave her a shot in the back, and that stopped it just like that. And he looked around at us kids afterwards, and he said, "Oh, she'll be all right. Just leave her real quiet now, and don't nobody say anything. And she'll fall asleep, and she'll be all right." And she did. We were all real quiet. And he says, "I want you to feed these kids everything you can poke in them. Just load them with food. Fried potatoes, pork chops, you name it, give it to them. All they'll take, and that'll save them." And she did, and we started to eat. And I couldn't eat very much at first, but we poked it out. About a week, we were all better. We made it. My brother Ed, he didn't get over so quick. He was sick for about a year. He had the shakes from it. He just couldn't hardly hold still. He was skinny, and it just left him in a hell of a shape. But he made it. Boy, I tell you, she almost spoon-fed him for a year to save him. But we all made it. Oh, son of a gun, that was terrible. That flu was awful. They died like flies.
All around you.
Oh, boyfriends of mine, the cars. Roy Carr died, and this guy died, and the other guy died.
Is that when you got the phonograph on, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been working, so I had money. Not a lot, but I had several $100s. And I had it in my my purse. I didn't have any place to put it. We didn't put no bank account. That was for rich people. We just had some money. And I called up the Lion and Healy, I think was the name of the place. And they still got places, you know.
Oh yeah, they're in Chicago.
Yeah, they were all over, a big outfit, and I explained who I was and what we wanted and how much would it cost. And we didn't care for a big fancy phonograph, but we wanted one that'd make a lot of noise and it was real good. And we wanted a case that underneath it to put the records, and we wanted all the money, records we could get. We could afford $85. How much could we have? Oh, he said, we'll send you a heck of a lot of stuff. I said, okay, when it gets here, we'll pay you for it. And it was there that afternoon. It was a little crank. It was about that square, and it had was one of them. It didn't have that big bell on it. It had a wooden horn underneath it, see? It was real nice. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget that damn thing. We played that thing morning, noon, and night. It must have been about 75 or 80 records. All we had piles of. They were real good to us. When I told them who we were, and we were just a bunch of children. I'd been working, and I had $85 to spend on this. Mother said I could spend $85, and that's all I could spend. And I said, how much can we get for that? He said, I'll give you enough that you'll run out. And he said, don't forget needles. Oh, no, he said, I'll send you half a dozen packages of those. I'll give you plenty of them. You'll have a lot of fun. And he did. It really touched him. And that thing come over and he set it up for us. Holy smoke, you ought to heard that thing. Oh, we played it morning, noon, and night. But that was all right. It really helped us. We laughed and played and sang that darn thing. I'll never forget it. Oh, we were all happy then. And I went back to school. I was through with the work, and I went back to Benson Polytechnic, and I finished the course. I was chief draftsman in that school. I had the whole drafting room working for me.
And what was that Scottish song?
Oh, the one that, my brother Joe's a baker and he sleeps along with me at 4 or 5 or 6 o'clock. Oh, when the snooze and snooing and it's musky overhead. Oh, it's nice to get up in the morning, but it's nicer to lie in bed. That damn thing went on. I think we wore those records out. Oh, that was a lot of fun.
It was.
And Mabel made it. She made it, and Pearl made it, and Ida. And
but didn't your grandma put a kerosene or something down your throat?
Well, that was a different time.
That was diphtheria you had.
That was diphtheria. I was by the river. I was a lot younger then. I was on the, that was, quite a bit younger. When I was, was I in school? I must have been about 6 years old anyway, I guess, maybe. Anyway, I was sleeping. She put me out in the tent at Forrest. We had 2 beds there, so she put me out there with them because diphtheria is kind of a contagious thing. See, she didn't want me to get with the other kids, and I was really sick. Mm-hmm. And she come out there, and I was choking. I was gasping for breath. And boy, she took a look at me, and she ran out in the chicken yard and grabbed one of the roosters. I could hear her, and she yanked a great big feather out of the rooster's tail. We had a lot of chickens. And she came running back in and unscrewed the coil oil lamp, and into the doggone coil oil lamp, I can see her yet. Pushed that rooster feather down in the back of there, and she grabbed me and down in my throat, and I could feel it yet. And it cut that stuff just like that.
That was the turning point.
Yeah, it cut that stuff in my throat. Oh, it was.
I heard other people did that too.
They did. I didn't know. Yeah. But this actually happened to me, and I can feel it yesterday. I would have died.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was kerosene. That kerosene cut it.
We can't know. We read about it, but we can't know, not having been there.
Yeah, they didn't have drugs in those days. You know, you did what you could.
We had the doctor come. He didn't know what to do about it because everybody died that had that. But I didn't. She wasn't going to let me. Well, I was quite a bit younger.
She must have been a real woman.
Oh, boy. She tell you if she ever hit you with the back of her hand, she'd have to kill you.
You figure those people came over from the old country, and traveled across the United States. That wasn't easy.
The endurance, yeah.
Oh, she was a nice mama. I love my mama. She was my lifesaver. She was good to us. But oh boy, she was strong. Her arms were about that big around, and she wham, just like that, and boy, I tell you, spun like a top.
Well, you had long curls as a boy too, didn't you?
Yeah. Until I went to school, Mama says, well, she had all girls, but she kept me like the girls, We didn't know that we just knew that I had to wear pants, and she could have a skirt on me like the rest of them because it was handier, if I had one the right size. But when I was going to go to school, she had to cut my hair off. And here I was without any more curls. There's a picture someplace, you can see it, where I had long yellow curls. Because I was just like the rest. And then she cut my hair off, and I went to school. My first teacher was Mabel Young. And with 5 ornery sisters at home, and every Friday afternoon we had a spelling contest, and Mabel Young would put the girls on one side of the room and the boys on the other, and we'd have a spelling contest. In about the 3rd round, and every boy in the room was in his seat, and here was all the girls standing up there grinning, and I was alone. And I had to spell every other word, and I stood there and put every girl in her seat, and the last one to go every Friday was Hazel Rates, and she used to go there crying every Friday. And I'd be standing up there alone. I didn't dare go home if those stinking girls ever beat me spelling, and I really studied like you wouldn't believe. And the reason I studied so hard, I remembered those 5 doggone mean girls I had to face, and they would really heckle me to death if the girls put me in my seat where I belonged. So I studied. And that's the reason I worked so hard at it, because I had 5 mean sisters at home that were going to really work me over, and they never got a chance, and they never said a word. But I knew Mabel Young would never forget it, and when we was out on the West Coast, I told Margaret, I says, that lady will never forget me. She never met anybody like me in her life. Oh, she said, you kid yourself, don't be like that. I said, you wait and see. So we looked her up in Sacramento. We had quite a little time finding her. What we finally found her. She didn't forget me. She knew how I was. We had a good time together. Now I says, Margaret, I says, now here she is. Now you can see it. I says, I told you she'd never forget me. But then she didn't know, like I did, that I'd be the only little guy standing up there every Friday. And that Friday that I never forgot. One of her grandsons was named. She said, I insisted they name him Forrest. I said, now Margaret, what do you know now?
I'll get the milk, just a sec.
Oh yeah, I knew Mabel Young. She was a wonderful
You want
teacher.
some more?
Yeah, she was the best teacher I ever had. I think maybe we hit it off good together. And I liked her and she liked me. Boy, I tell you, it was really... She used to ride a kind of a light brown horse to school, saddle horse, and he was a real good horse. And she
must be something to ride a horse to school,
Yeah, because the roads were so rough, you couldn't ride a wagon hardly on the mud, it'd be a foot thick on the main road. There wasn't any much, they didn't have no much money for the road, in those days, and it was, they put a little gravel on it, and it'd sink into the mud, and there you were, stuck in the mud. And she lived about a mile and a half or 2 from school at Woodwood Court. And she'd ride that horse of hers, Mail. It was a big saddle. Oh, a beautiful horse. And he was nuts about her, too. And she'd take his saddle off and throw it over there by the big drinking fountain where they used to water the horses by the school. There's a big drinking fountains every place in those days, you know, for horses. And he would run around the area there, you know, and when she was ready to go home, she'd just whistle. And here he come, you know, all brother, all pranced and ready to go. She'd throw that saddle on him, tighten up the cinch and jump on him and go home.
Did you have the bulls before or after you were in the first grade like that? You had bulls. Remember you had the 2 bulls?
Oh, the bulls. That was when I was younger yet. That was when that's when I was growing up by the river and when I got the diphtheria.
Oh.
And kullity, you know, she had twin bulls. She was a big Holstein. And my father says, Forrest, there's only one way you're going to learn how things are born. You're going to be with me and see this. Okay. I'll never forget, it was the most beautiful thing I ever saw in my life. She delivered those bulls and they come out. First one, and it was all folded up, and it was like in a plastic bag, and his legs were folded up on it. And it lay down on the ground. First, my father took this plastic bag and he cut it, and I took it off of her. And pretty soon, she grunted a little bit, and here come another one. And then, Pa, we're going to have 2. And then we had 2 black and white bulls. And they lay there for a little while. She turned around and started to lick one and then the other. She was just all shook. You could see that, shook up too. And she cleaned them up. And they first started to run around there finding something to eat. And she got them on there. And my father helped them to get on the tits and get some milk, kiddo, pretty soon. And boy, I want to tell you, that was something. And they used to, one time, my mother she made a mistake and hung the laundry out, you know, sighting a pair of my father's pants, and the bulls got a hold of it. One got a hold of one leg and the other, they pulled it right smack in half. He was ready to kill him. And then one day we rented that place for $10 a month, and it was about 10 acres here. For about $10 a month. And the house wasn't much, but it was on the river, and it was nice. And here come Mr. Bunker in to get his rent, and both the bulls saw him. Head down, and here I was screaming. He beat it for the gate. He got the gate closed about 2 feet ahead of the bulls. They had short horns about that long by that time. And we used to play when I come home, you know. I'd grab them by the horns, you know, and we'd wrestle, you know. Boy, they were something. But poor Mr. Bunker and my father, I cried. He called up the fellow that was the butcher, and he sold the 2 of them. Oh,
boy, they get out of hand, you know.
But they were a lot of fun for me.
Pet bulls.
But when they pulled my father's pants to pieces, I tell you, he was damn mad about it. I can tell you, those damn bulls. Coolity. Black and white, you know, they were tougher than the deuce, you know. And here they come when I was coming in the gates, you know. Coming home from school, the 2 of them coming, I grabbed one of them by the horns, you know, and the other one would be helping me when we would be wrestling, you know. They like to wrestle, see. They were real playmates for me. Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't let them raise them all the way on. You know, I loved the thing. They were wonderful to me, because they looked at me as just another animal, you know, to play with. Oh boy, when I came in, we had a picnic. We'd run all over the yard, and I'd throw something, and they'd catch it, and all 3 of us were running for it. They're a lot of fun to play with. They're real playmates. They're the best. But my father sold them. Oh boy, I cried. That was terrible. But I got over it, but I knew he had to, because when they chased old man Bunker out of there, he says, you know, somebody comes in that yard to kill him.
Yeah.
Oh, I said, Father, they're all said playmates. You know, I said, look at them.
But to
Yeah,
you.
to me, yeah, he says, but to somebody else, and I says, you were getting pretty damn strong as a result of wrestling these doggone bulls. I never, I wasn't too strong,
But
I
it
had
was a threat.
diphtheria and everything, and boy, I was pretty well beat out. But I started to get, it was wonderful muscular exercise for me, and here I was fighting those bulls every day, and I was getting hungry, and I was eating like a pig, and growing.
You moved to Portland after that, huh, Pa? In the little house where you planted the holly trees, didn't you?
Yeah, I planted the holly trees there, yeah. Well, we owned that house. My father bought it. When we were living in Linton, we owned the house in Portland. The reason we had it, we put some money in a bank that we had when he came from Oregon. I came from Cass Lake, where I was born. That's in Minnesota. I was 4 years old then. We came to, we were going to come to Linton, but he'd stopped in Portland at Auntie Schuholm's, Auntie Lena. That's my mother's sister, Auntie Lena. She was
there
married
already then.
Oh yeah, they were there and established. She had about 5 houses, and they were semi-rich. But her husband, Gus, he got to be quite an alcoholic, and he used to get the snakes and Auntie Lena. Oh Lord, I had a childhood. I never thought of these things for years. You got
Did
me
they
thinking.
have children?
Oh sure, Clarence and Harold and Evelyn.
Is that why you went there? Because
No, my father went there because my mother wanted to go to the West Coast because we were living in Cass Lake, Minnesota. I was born there, and we left there when I was about 4 years old. Mama said, well, we'd have when the Sears and Roebuck Brown heating stoves with a piece of steel, I guess, behind it to keep the Walton kitchen on fire. And she says in the other end of the room in the wintertime, was 50 below zero out there, it would be ice on the wall inside of that room. And she says, I just couldn't take it. She said, I'd been in Spokane as I worked for a family, and I came back to Minneapolis, and she knew my dad and came back there, and they got married, and they went to Cass Lake. And that's another story I could tell you sometime. You get a kick out of it. But anyhow, my father was a real good accordion player. He was musical.
I didn't know that.
Oh, sure. My father could play the accordion like you wouldn't believe. He was a jeweler, too. He was a watchmaker. He was really a genius. He had more trades than enough. He was the chief engineer for the Janius Lumber Company. But he had an offer to go to the Clark and Wilson plant. Some of the fellows, they had a lot of trouble out there, and they needed a good man, and some of these guys out there knew my father from Cass Lake, and they told him about it. And this outfit wrote to him and offered him a good deal, so my dad, we moved out to Portland, and then we went to Linton. She had to get a place. We stayed there with Auntie Lena first, so we got a place in Portland. But when he put his money in the bank went broke. And my father went in there to see them, and they said, well, we want to be right with the people. Here's the properties that we have that we foreclosed on, that we own. And for your amount of money, we will give you that house on 321 Russell Street, free and clear, for your deposit. Because we got all these houses, and he said, we can't
that was
get
a good
cash.
deal. Then he didn't lose any. He
didn't lose it. So the old man said, my dad says, sure, we'll take it, and then we'll rent it. And we may live there sometime. And so after a while, when the kids got a little bigger, and the automobiles got so they would run, we had a 1914, I guess it was, Ford, that you had to shake hands with, And that stinker, when it was a cold morning, if you forgot to put the blocks in front of the back wheels to keep it going forward, and when you started, and if you choked it and give it a couple of swings, the engine go, And that sucker would never miss a lick if it pushed you up against the back of the garage and held you there and you were screaming to somebody coming to get you out of there, and that thing would go, and it was just like it was really having a good time, and push you up against the back of that garage, and there you were hollering. You only had to have that a couple of times that you remember to put the blocks in front of the back wheels. Because there's enough friction in the heavy oil that was in the transmission that it would push, a little bit until it got warmed up. Oh, that damn old junk. And then I bought I paid $87, I think it was, for a 1912 Ford, serial number 375,000. And later on, in 1924, I traded it for a Ford Roadster and paid the rest of it for $440 for a 1924 Ford Roadster, which was my first new automobile, serial number 9,590,920, and I haven't said that word in 20 years. You read up all this stuff, I never will forget that serial number of that thing, 9,590,000. That's how many cars he made by that time, 1924. It had a self-starter on it, it had demountable rims, and I put a foot feed on it. They didn't have that. See, foot accelerator. It had a generator and a storage battery and electric headlights that were run from the generator. Of course, it had a magneto too, that big magneto. It had that, and then the spark coils up there. And if one of them started to misfire, you just kicked it one and got it going again. See, then she would keep on running. That was a 24 Ford. But my first one was that 1912. And I bought that second hand. I think I paid.
Then you had a lot of motorcycles.
Oh yeah, I had
about a half a dozen or so.
Oh, my brother had a Pope little single-cylinder V-belt drive, and I used to take that damn thing out once in a while. And then I got the first one was a Pope Big Twin. Before I'd had that other 24 Ford, I had a Pope Big Twin, and it didn't have any starter on it. So there was two ways you could start it: pull up the stand and then pull the back wheel to start the engine, and then put it in neutral and then get on and ride it. But the way I used to start it is just lift the valves. It had a valve lifter on the intercom controls, so because it was very high compression, otherwise it was slid the back wheel, and I'd push it a couple of feet. So it got moving, got the engine going, then I'd drop the valves and she'd fire, and it had sideboards on it, so that you could step on the board and just throw my leg over it and give her a little soup, and boom, off you'd go. That thing had power. That was an overhead valve Pope. Yeah. And then I traded that off, and I had a 1915 Ford Indian 3-speed, and that had a Kickstarter on it, and I drove that thing a lot. It had a cradle spring frame. It had a hinge in the center like these.
And you had an accident when you flew over a car or something, didn't you?
Oh, God, I hit a car broadside one time, another guy with me, and oh, man, I just went right on over the car like this, and they lit up my butt on the other side.
You were lucky, huh?
Yeah.
I was practically stopped, so I didn't do any damage to the car, and I only bent my fork a little bit, and I was able to straighten it out myself. But the impact just raised I had a hold of the handlebars, and they had a single joint in the center, so they just sprung up like that, and that's, I think, what saved me. And I just hung on to them, and that just threw me right up like that, and I made it somerset in the air, and I lit on the other side, on my rear end and my legs. I got up, shook myself, and I was pretty rugged. It didn't bother me too much. I didn't, outside of it being black and blue a few places, I guess. I was all right, and the guy driving the Ford, he looked around, he said, well, how you guys doing? With another guy right alongside of me, and he went over the front on the other side. He said, well, I said, we're all right, we just got to get straightened out a little bit. I said, how are you? Oh, he said, I didn't. He said, just a little nick here and there. It don't mean nothing. He said, I said, how about it? Well, he said, that's okay, let's forget it. And I said, okay, it's square all around. That's the way it was in the old days, see? You guys, that was all right. That's just a few scratches on the old poor hell. He's just loaded with them anyway. Don't make any difference. So we went off. That was all there was to it. Boy, I went right over that damn thing. Just hell of like this. Just spun right in the air. Oh, I had a lot of fun. Old Bill Burley, William Burley, he was my buddy. We grew up together in Linton, and when we moved to Portland, I used to go out there and see him anyway. And he had an Indian single speed 1913 or so police model, and had a single clutch to it, and it was a short machine. And he used to take these mufflers off, and and then he used the exhaust pipes right straight down. You had to leave those on, or your pants would catch on fire from the exhaust of the engine, see? And here come old Bill Burley, and we were wheeling along on that road, and there was ruts in it and every damn thing, and he said, "Hey, Flossie, how am I doing?" And I said, "Holy crap, Bill, what are you trying to kill yourself?" Here he was coming about 55 miles an hour, and he was leaning, he was leaning about forward like that, standing up on the seat. He said, "How do you like this? Ain't that pretty slick?" I said, "Brother, you're it." Down the road. It hit those damn holes and ruts. What I got going around there? He made it
bounce around.
Finally, he just opened his leg, slid down on the seat, sat down on the thing. I said, "Bill, don't try that again. You scare me to death." He said, "Wasn't it fun though?" Oh man, you talk about growing up. If my mother seen us, she'd have died. We used to go down, we rode there, and no cops never bothered us, you know. We had no mufflers on. And those things would roar something terrible coming down the road, but they didn't bother us. They wouldn't, after all, they don't care, we're just kids. We weren't causing anybody any trouble. We were having a lot of fun, and you just had to watch out for the cows on the road. Don't hit nobody's cow. That was a grave offense then, But outside of that, they didn't bother us any. And I had a lot of fun. They had a 16 or 17 Buick Roadster. And it belonged to the Wilsons, and we used it as a service car, and I used to drive it for parts. When they needed parts, if I was around there, they'd let me drive it too. And that damn thing, you can go 60, 65 miles an hour over those rutted roads, and it had wheels on it about that high. It must have been about 36-inch wheels on it. They had big wheels on those cars in the old days because it made it easier on going over the ruts. And it had a torque tube drive, not a Hotchkiss. It drove up through the torque tube, right up through the engine. And it was a big 6-cylinder Buick Roadster. Boy, I used to wheel that damn thing down the road, you wouldn't believe it. I could really drive that thing. That was a good automobile. I had a lot of things. I learned a lot of stuff with my father. See, I learned to weld. I was a good machinist because my father would be on, they had 2 lathes, and he'd give me the good lathe, and he'd take the old junker, and we'd race on boring sprockets. They were about that big around, and they were rough castings, and they were for the sprocket chain on the outside, and you had to bore the hole with a plug gauge, and then we'd key seat it so used to make our own sprockets because you couldn't buy those things, so we had a pattern, we'd have a cast, and we'd make them, we'd bore them. And I used to race with him. I never beat him, but boy, you ought to see the fire fly when we were going to it there. And he'd maybe have 100 sprockets to bore, and I want to tell you, he got those sprockets bored right now. He had to bore them to a plug gauge, and I learned how to do that, and that was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. See this?
Yeah, that's his finger that's cut down.
Oh yeah, no.
I was running a planer. That's a big machine tool. The big table goes back and forth, and I had a half of a donkey engine up on the. I was putting that up on the table to plane the steam chest ports, and I had it in a big block, and that block had a trip line on it, and the damn thing stuck. So I put my hand down like this to give me a boost to reach up to shake the block. And just as I shook it, the darn thing came down, and there was a T-slot right here, and it pushed the rest of this finger here down into that T-slot, and just a little piece of meat was left there, see?
Oh.
And that's what broke that like that, see? You can see this around here, see this scar around there. She just broke the bone there and broke that off. And so when I hollered, they got a couple of 3 or 4 guys over there to raise the block up and get me out of there. And I went over, they just wrapped it up, and I went up to the doctor, and he took a look at it, and he said, holy smoke, I think we can put it back on there for you. Do you think you can stand it? I said, oh, let me sit down and give me a snort, and then I'll just make it. And he did, and he put it back on there, and there it is.
Oh, gosh.
How old were you when you climbed Mount Hood? Were you about 18, 19?
1925, July 4th. I was born in 1903, I was 22.
22. That was in the summer, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was at Klickitat, Washington then. Hotter than the hubs of hell. I weighed 178 pounds. I could put my hands around my waist just like that. 110 in the shade and no shade. 115. Oh! Yeah. Oh, lady, I worked there. My father was killed in that. I went on to I saved my money and I went on to the University of Washington, Seattle. But when my father was killed there in the sawmill accident, he had tore all to pieces. He's like a hamburger.
Oh, that's too bad.
And I probably could have stayed on, but I wanted to get a job. Give me a little more. I wanted to get a job, and I looked all around there. Boeing didn't have anything to offer. Kenworth truck didn't either. The depression was. But he said, I think we can get you in there. But I had left Seattle because I was going to the University of Washington, Seattle. I couldn't get a job there from Boeing. I couldn't get a job there from Kenworth Truck. And I talked to the fellows in the house where I was staying, and I says, how do you fellows making it? You're working for he said, we can get you on in the streetcar company. I said, how do you make it? I see in the paper they ain't paying any wages. Oh, he said, we know that. He said, we'll teach you how you can shake down and you can take enough just every day so you can eat. And I said, you ain't talking to me.
No.
I said, I won't do it. If I have to steal to make it, I'll leave.
Agree to it, yeah.
So I left. I just couldn't do it. But that's what they were doing. He says, well, we don't like to do it. He says, but we have to. We can't make it. He says, there's no way. They won't pay you nothing. And he says, what are you going to do? He says, you just take out enough and just don't bring it up. And then you keep that in your pocket. He says, that's what you can use to eat on. He says, just take enough to say you can eat. Don't steal anything beyond that. You're never going to get your wages. The damn place is run by the politicians, and they stole all the money, and there ain't no money left. Well, I ain't going to work for a pack of thieves like that. And that was actually the truth. I'm just telling you, man to man, what these guys were telling me, and they were going, this was cold turkey. They were offering me to do it. I said, no way, I'll go back to Portland. I couldn't get nothing in Portland. And these guys in the moon picture business, I knew Jack Sturhoff, he was a moon picture operator. There wasn't no jobs except this lousy one there. And another thing that got to me was that these were not the best people for me to associate with. Because they were up at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and everybody else, and they met down in the coffee cup. And they were young guys that I knew, see. And their morals stumped to high heaven, and I just couldn't quite get it. Maybe it's me, but I just couldn't take it. I just
That wasn't your lifestyle.
It wasn't my lifestyle, no.
Even as a single person.
Yeah, I said I just couldn't. I just
that.
couldn't. I just couldn't take it. That was all. So I left. But how I happened to leave. One guy, the operator, he wasn't the operator. Says, Forrest, get that Chicago Tribune. There's always that ads in that damn thing for machinists and all kinds of people. So I bought one. Holy smoke, here it was, ads in the damn paper. I had a sister that was married and lived in Milwaukee, and I stopped there for a while, but I just couldn't get a decent job in that place. I worked there for a while and stayed there, and then I went on to
There was there was Pearl. Wasn't
Pearl,
there?
yeah.
Pearl.
I went on to Chicago.
You didn't get along with Pearl in Washington?
No,
did
up in Milwaukee. I didn't like their way of living. I just, that wasn't for me.
She was a lively one, wasn't she?
Oh, she was a stinker.
Well, she's the one we met
Visited
in
in
Vegas.
Las
She said she
Vegas.
was involved with the hoodlums and everything.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
She was going there being a front for Al Capone and his boys down in Florida.
She was
A hostess. wasn't
A
it?
hostess, yeah. But she said it sounded like she had a good
Oh,
time.
beautiful, beautiful girl.
Yeah, but oh,
Beautiful
God.
girl.
It wasn't for me.
No,
What'd your mother think of her being involved with that?
maybe Grandma didn't know.
Oh,
I
she
think,
must have known.
yeah, she did, but she couldn't have done. But it wasn't for me. I guess it's me.
You were always meant to be a family person, though, Dad.
Yeah, I just couldn't take it.
That was your
I
basic
just couldn't.
background.
I just couldn't take the whole mess. It stunk as
Uh-huh.
far as I was concerned. I could reach out and
Well,
take
you
it
did,
anytime.
But Mayo and Thee were still in
Portland.
at that time.
That we're still in Portland, and I got a couple of paychecks. I worked for a Ready Lawnmower Company up there as a machinist, and I was running a lathe making crankshafts for outboard motors, piecework, and running about 100 crankshafts an hour. And I could run it. I could do anything. I didn't give a
Was this
damn.
in Milwaukee, Dad?
Milwaukee. And I made myself a few bucks there because I was getting kind of low because I'd spent everything I had to get there.
Coming through, yeah.
See, and I sat up in that damn train with a few sandwiches for about 3 days and nights in order to make it. That's all the money I had. I was broke. So when I got some money, I came on to Portland, to Chicago, and the first thing I did, I picked up a Tribune there. I stayed there overnight at a little hotel in the city when I got in there, and I read that thing, and there was a Bush agency there that had an ad in the Tribune. So I went over there, and gee, I looked at the place. Holy smoke, there must have been 600-700 guys around there. It was loaded all over the place.
Wall to wall.
And I just elbowed my way up to the second story, and they were lined up on both sides of the damn staircase.
Oh.
Man, it was loaded with them. And I went over to the desk. He was over here. Had a little desk over there in the corner, and I got my way into that. And I saw that job on top of on the wall, lathe hand, 75 cents an hour. And I looked at this guy. I didn't know what his name was then, and I said, "How about that job? Lathe hand, 75 cents an hour." He says, "Yeah, that's a good job. Got $5." I said, "I bet I am." So I handed him $5. And we got really acquainted later on. His name was Whalen. And he gave me a little note to the foreman, the superintendent. His name was Daly, and he told me what streetcar to take. And I took the streetcar, and I got off right in front of the place, and I went in and met the guy, talked to him, and he was a really nice guy, but he wasn't feeling very good. He was sick. So he put me to work, and I got 75 cents an hour, and I went to work the next morning. Brought my tools in there, and I run the
That was
damn...
pretty good money for those.
Yeah, that was good money. It was a good job. Well, I could run that damn lathe. I can run anything. I was there for about 2 weeks, and the old boy, he had pneumonia, and he died. And the guy, there was only about 5 of us in the shop, and the boss came down. His name, the fellow that owned the place came down and says, "Can you run this place?" I says, "I sure can." I was the youngest guy there, only been there about 2 weeks then, and I was just a young fellow. And he says, "Well, you're boss,
My goodness.
and I am superintendent, so I ran the damn place."
You were in charge.
And there was a little girl come down from upstairs. Upstairs came down, and she says, "My name is Miss Jensen, and I'm a secretary upstairs." Oh, brother. I lived down south, and the first thing you know, I bought an old cheap car. It was one of those drive yourself touring cars, Hertz. And I rode around in that damn thing, and it was awful. But they didn't have any side curtains on it, and it was cold and miserable. So I earned enough money that pretty soon I bought a Buick, not a Chrysler Roadster. I think it was, what was it, 29? Oh, I don't know what that was. No, it was 24, I guess. It had hydraulic brakes on it, but you had to pump them up once in a while because the pressure would go down. But anyway, I bought that thing. And that little girl that I used to keep going out to see her, you see. And she just wrapped herself right around me. First damn thing you know, we were married and raising kids. Here I am. It was wonderful. I loved her. She was just great. It was the best thing ever happened to me.
That's right there.
First girl I ever went that I really wanted to marry. And I was lonesome as hell, but on top of that, I just had a beautiful life with her. She was just wonderful. And she looked after the money. And I worked. It was real good. We had it real nice. But that depression was a holy fright. Those fellas working there were making 40 cents an hour. And I was making 75 cents. I was a top late man, 75 cents an hour. So he told me they needed a little circulator pump to pump the water through these hot water heating systems. They could sell those things like hotcakes if I could make them. And I designed a unit. You know how many of those things they've made since I left there?
Millions.
2 million of them. They're over 2 million now.
Wasn't that the one that was on our?
Bell and Gossett, yeah. Bell and Gossett.
Well, yeah, that was on
Was that Mr. Gossett or Mr. Bell?
That was Gossett. I met Mr. Bell also, and he was down at Case Hardening Service Company, which is a division of theirs, and they separated, and he kept Case Hardening Service Company, and I was down at Case Hardening Service
Bell and Gossett separated early in their career.
Yeah, early in their career, before even I
kept the same name. Bell and Gossett Company, they kept the name.
Yeah, that's right. That was Mr. Bell. He was a metallurgist, and he had Case Hardening Service Company down in Cleveland.
Oh.
And when we went on our honeymoon, we stopped to see Mr. Bell, because Margaret knew him real well, and we had a good time there. And then we went on to we didn't go there. I think we were married. She was pregnant, and she was she was carrying Margaret Ann. And we went on to Niagara Falls, and I took her picture there, and we enjoyed ourselves. We had a good time. And she had her first baby. It was a beautiful baby. And she was really the best thing that ever happened to me. I was real happy with her. Always was. It was a good
She got pregnant more in La Crosse too, didn't Mom get pregnant in La Crosse when we were there? She lost the one?
Yeah, I think that's right. She lost a child.
Yeah. Because she would have had more than 4, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, she lost one child. And Dr. Skemp, who was a Catholic doctor, and it was a very good, he told me, he said, it's hopeless, Forrest. He said, I have to save her. I can't do anything but save her, and I have to do it. It's my obligation. I've got to do it. I said, well, it's up to you, Doc. I said, I can't do nothing for you. Whatever's necessary, let's get it done. Because I want you to save my wife. And he did. Yeah, that's right. It happened. Anything happens to me that happens to anybody else.
Yeah.
It did happen, yeah. And she couldn't stand the climate. I had a real good job there. I worked for one of the, in fact, I used to go in his office and we used to sit there and talk. Chairman of the board. I worked for the chairman of the board of the company.
In La Crosse.
La Crosse
Train Company.
That's a big outfit.
Very
I wasn't there very long, that I was a buddy with the chairman of the board.
I remember you saying salary, how much money you were making.
Good for that time.
It was
outstanding.
good.
Yeah, and not
Was that
only
the
that.
late 30s, Dad?
39.
39?
Yeah, I could have stayed there, and I would have been vice
Beautiful.
president of that company. But Mama, I told him, I says, I can't stay here, she'll die. They tell me she'll die, and I said, I can't afford it.
Yeah, her health was really suffering.
Oh, she couldn't lay down at night. She had to sleep sitting up all the time.
Yeah, I said, I
Whatever
have
was
to,
in that air up there, she
I don't know what it is, but they tell me they can't do anything for her. She'll die if I keep her here. He said, then it's a limit. Every time I get some guy up here, I really want to work with and is a good buddy of mine, and he has to leave. He said, is that true? He said, I feel terrible, but I know you have to save your wife. He said, I'll let you go, but I'm sorry. I said, I don't even have a job now in Chicago. But I said,
I knew you had to leave.
I said, I have to leave. I have to save my wife.
Yeah.
So we just up and left. Came back. That's when I got a job at Midland Machine Corporation. I was an engineering checker. They had made some, as I was working on engineering drawings, and they had designed a machine. They were running one machine tool, they were making a turret lathe, and they designed another big machine. And they had made a lot of mistakes in it. And I told them, I says, you know, if you build this big machine that you've got over $100,000 spent on already, the gears will jump out of the headstock. It'll fly apart. Oh my God. They started to recheck it and they found out I told them the truth. Yeah, I said, this damn machine will all fly apart. I said, they can't help it. I have to tell you the truth. I had to quit. There was no job. I was out of it. They hated me. The engineering group that designed it hated my guts. I didn't have a friend in the place. But I said, I just walked out. I said, I'm sorry.
It wasn't safe then.
I said, no. I said, this damn thing is just a total loss. They shut the plant down and closed it up, went out of business. It was a part of clearing machine. They had the money and old Glassner could afford it. They shut the whole thing down and it was just a total loss. But I couldn't help it. Those guys hated me. Why? Well, you couldn't save them. I couldn't do nothing about it. It wasn't my fault. I couldn't help it. I was so sorry, but I couldn't help it. So I went downtown and I told the guy down there I needed a job. Well, he sent me out to University of Chicago. He said, they need some men out there. He said, I don't know how it is, but go out and see them. So I went out there and I filled out an application. Told him, wrote in the application all the places I'd been, superintendent Belly Gossett for so many years, run the damn plant. Came on a train company, La Crosse. You can talk to the chairman of the board up there. He'll tell you who I am. And I says I had to leave there because my wife couldn't stand the climate. It killed her. Well, he says, you're just the man we're looking for. We have already checked on you. We're desperate. We need somebody that can build a machine shop and run it and get it going right now. And the Army says, if we don't do something right now, we're stuck. They're going to take this whole project away from us and they're going to run it themselves. They have had it. They're not getting the job done. And the scientist says, we've got to have a man like you right now, otherwise we're going to lose the whole thing if you can do it. I said, I can do the job. I have no problem making anything you want. No problem for me. I can handle anything. I'll throw it right at it. You're fired. The Army okayed me. I was okay. And I started to hire a crew. I made out first a whole darn list of stuff that I needed. They had a little machine shop they were running. They had the big Ryerson shop, but they were used to diddling around, you know, and fooling around and getting the job. They didn't just fool around, but they took their sweet time and they didn't get anything done to speak of. With a great big shop, they weren't getting the job done, and the Army was just desperate. They had to have this big project they were working on moving. So I was given the job to do it. Well, I made out a list of stuff. I worked on it for 2 days, and it was a tremendous list of stuff. They had a small machine shop of things that I wanted right away, small tools that we needed right away, and I had a few men that were working in there. I said, so we can get going. You haven't got anything to work with. We need drills, we need emery wheels, we need this, we need that. We got to have stuff to work with. We'll take your jobs in. I need a drafting room. I can get draftsmen. I have to have machine designers. but I have to have this first. I gave this big list to the purchasing department at the university. Sent it up there, and 2 days later I called them. This was my only big mistake. Holy smoke. 2 days later I called them and asked them where this stuff was. The answer was, well, the purchasing agent, I'll never forget this as long as I live, is on a vacation. He'll be back in a couple of weeks. And when he comes back, we will take up your material that you need. And he says it'll take a week or so to analyze this thing, decide where they're going to send all these orders for all these tools and all this stuff. This is a tremendous amount of stuff you want. And the Army says, give it to you. And that'll take a week or two, and we'll get it all oriented. We'll send it all out. And in a couple of weeks, it'll come back, and we'll have a meeting, and then purchasing agent will be back by that time, and we'll decide where we're going to send this stuff for bids. And when the bids come in, we will decide then in another couple of weeks where we're going to buy it. And this is the truth. And I was listening. And then he says, we'll send out the orders, and that'll take a couple of weeks to get this all written up and get it all where the purchasing agent wants to buy this material. And in a week or two after this added up to about 7 or 8 weeks before I was going to get any material. I didn't say anything. I just hung up. I said, thank you. I called Captain Ware, and I told him what they said. I said, I can't take it. I've got to have my own purchasing agent. And if you okay it, and give me the power to do it, I will call a man who can do the job that I know is competent to do it, and I'll have that material here in 1 day. I says, he works, but he's got to be under my direction. We have to have the authority to buy, authority from the Army, directives and AAAs and everything we need power to get it. And we'll get it, and we'll be running. In 2 days we'll be running. Not 3 months. He says, Captain Ware says, go ahead, I'll notify the general what we're doing. We'll give you the directives, AAA's directives. Hire your man. Let's go tomorrow. I said, that's all I have to have. I take your word. I called this purchasing agent down at Middle Machine, where I had just left, and told him that their plant was going to be shut down. That I was working for the Army now, and I had the power to get anything I needed. I couldn't tell you any more, but I want you to quit your job and be here tomorrow morning at this address at 8 o'clock, ready to go to work, and just tell them that you are going to work for the Army, and I'm not kidding you, and the Army will give you deferment without question. They promised me that so I can have you. I said, you don't want to. You're not trying to get out of the Army. I said, they know that. I said, you know you're going to be drafted, but you're not. When you didn't ask for this, I'm asking you, but I'm telling you. The Army wants you tomorrow morning, and they want you here. I can tell you if you want to call them back and you can verify it, but if you take my word for it, you'll be here 8 o'clock and you'll be working for the Army. And they will take your name and your number, and they'll put all that stuff, and they will put it in their file, and nobody will touch you. He says, you got yourself a man. I'm your boy. And you'll be here 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, and we'll rig up a desk and a telephone, and you got to go to work. And he did. Next morning, here he came, Johnny on the pot. I said, you're here. I said, so this is the place. Captain Ware will show up and take all your dope from you, and you tell them who you are, what you're going to do, and you're working for the Army. They will give you the absolute clearance that nobody will touch you. I said, because I have to have you. You've got what it takes to do this job, and we can't look around. We don't have any time. That was Art Sternberg. He was my purchasing agent. He'd been my purchasing, and that guy was Jewish, and he knew every skunk in town. When he had power like that, you ought to see the fur fly. And I said, I got you a stenographer from the Army office, and she's going to be here with a typewriter. They'll bring you right away, post haste, and she'll come in here, and you can have all the help you want. And then you just call Captain Ware, tell him how much people you want, and he will get you those people out of their office right away, and we're rolling. And I want this stuff in 2 days. He says, you got it. And he started on that damn phone. And what he did to those suppliers, you wouldn't believe. He had the power, he had the directives, he had the AAAs. He could pull a piece of machinery right out of an aircraft factory if he wanted to. I said, you've got unlimited power, the power behind the United States government, the United States Army behind you. And they'll do anything without question when you name it. That's the thing that I've told them. I says, and they're not fooling. And I said, they mean it. And you go to work. And that stuff was there in 2 days, and we were rolling. And the university got so mad at me. I was the most hated man in the whole organization. When they found out what I had done, I pulled this whole thing away from them. They had no authority at all to buy. And I never realized that, see, that they would get that mad. Mm-hmm. And they never forgot it. They did everything they could to try and destroy me, and they couldn't. They could keep me from getting gasoline coupons. They could keep me from getting the salary I wanted. I worked for cheap wages, and the Holy Spirit came and talked to me, and he says, I'll protect you. You go ahead. You will not get hurt. It was the Holy Spirit talking. He says, when you get stuck, you just call him in. We will take care of you. So when I couldn't get my automobile license, see, because I didn't have any money, I couldn't get the ticket. I asked the Holy Spirit, I said, I'm stuck. I can't get to work. He said, I'll take care of it. Go ahead.